This has been a big week for Xbox. I'm going to talk about it in my weekly gaming podcast I do called the Bonfire Gaming Podcast. Go check it out. All podcast platforms here on YouTube, wherever. But I did want to do a more focused video just on the blog that got posted by Microsoft and Xbox. And in it, I'll kind of mention some of the other things that have happened this week as well. So let's check it out. Okay, so here we have it. Here's the article on Xbox Wire. It's labeled "We Are Xbox." It was written, probably by lots of people, maybe even a little bit of AI. There's a little bit of AI cadence in here, but I'm sure it was edited and reviewed by the proper people. But by Matt Booty and Asha Sharma. Matt Booty being the head of gaming, and Asha being the new head of Xbox. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But I'm not going to read all of this. If you're an Xbox fan or just a gaming fan and you like to stay in the know, I do suggest going to read this whole thing. I think this is cool. Even if you're not an Xbox fan, I feel like even like a PlayStation gamer would love to have a blog like this from PlayStation. From whoever's in Herman Holst or whoever's in charge over there now. They're not as public facing, I feel like, so it's always I tend to forget who's in charge there. But we have this cool picture of Asha stepping up to this podium. Apparently this was taken on the day this came out. They did a big kind of internal team meeting just to throw out someone to notice here. I believe this is Jason Ronald, right to the right of Asha there. He's the head of hardware. He's been kind of chit-chatting quite a bit lately on Twitter. It's been really interesting. Asha and him have both been out there pretty heavy, even in other Xbox employees as well. When people saying some stupid stuff about the brand or, just not being right or maybe even lying, not to accuse anyone of anything. There's been a lot of clapbacks. It's been kind of curious, even to the point where Sean Layden, who's a former PlayStation executive, he rails on Game Pass literally once a week, at least. On LinkedIn or on social media, he posts, and it's weird. He's like the head of a gambling app or something now. He hasn't been in games in a long time, and maybe he's still a PlayStation fan and still living that console war dream, but. He's like the only one. But it was funny. He made a big post, and Asher replied to him on LinkedIn, being like, "Hey, we should chat sometime." Like, not a clapback. She wasn't being aggressive, but that's how you deal with people like that. All of these content creators who are hyper negative and all that. You get them to talk because most of them don't have anything to say. Regardless, Xbox had a lot to say here, so I might cut this up a little bit. So if you notice cuts, that's why. But I do suggest you go and read this whole article. Any gamer would love to see their favorite brand or a brand that they enjoy lay things out the way they did here. I'll read a little bit of it though. It says this message was sent to Team Xbox employees globally. Well, before I actually get into it, sorry to do another sidetrack here. This came right before this came out. There was a bunch of news that was dropping through the day on Thursday. I'm recording this on Friday, April 24th. One of the things that came out was that internally, for a long time, for quite a while now, it's been Microsoft, and then Xbox's actual division was under Microsoft Games, and then Xbox was underneath that. It's just a name change, but for all intents and purposes, there's no Microsoft Games anymore. It's Microsoft and then Xbox. And Asha Sharma is not the CEO of Microsoft Gaming. She's the CEO or whatever her position is exactly of Xbox, which, like lots of things in this article and in this blog, as well as things that have been happening since she came in, is a lot of talk. It's a lot of good words. It feels good. And it's really important that they follow through and actually do, and especially in this article, they do these things that they're saying are important to them. But I will say too that even just saying these things does matter. To say and acknowledge the things that people have been frustrated about for years now. Xbox fans or people who maybe want to be Xbox fans, but things have turned them off, which is pretty understandable. The messaging has been pretty bad for at least like the last 4 or 5 years. This whole generation of series really has been kind of rough. And even back to the Xbox One, things have been, an uphill climb and have included some rake stepping as well. So keep that in mind. So here it says, dear team, Xbox has always been different. We started with a simple idea: games should bring people together through shared experiences. This led to the first Xbox in 2001, Xbox Live in 2002, new ways to connect, and blah, blah, blah. They've reached over 500 million players. From the beginning, Xbox was built by people willing to try things that others wouldn't. And then it says here, that spirit has carried us through 25 years, and it is required to carry us forward. This was kind of the cool part here. They got into it pretty quick. So it says, we have work to do. I will say this is the first time I can remember Xbox in some official capacity has acknowledged, like, hey, we need to be better. In the very first line is, players are frustrated. New feature drops on console have been less frequent. Our presence on PC isn't strong enough. This is probably in reference to a lot of people hating the PC app. Even though I don't have any problems with it, apparently other people have. Pricing is getting harder for people to keep up with, which games, subscriptions, hardware, all those things are true. And the core experiences like search, discovery, social, and personalization feel too fragmented, which is true. It's one thing to keep in mind is Sharma, while everyone has labeled her like the AI CEO, it's really not true. She's only been involved in AI for a little bit, and it doesn't really seem like it was core to her kind of experience. If you look back at her history, she had much more experience in like acquiring users and improving social experiences. So going back to Facebook Messenger, which is one of her early big things that she did, was there and was a big part of them growing from, I want to say it was like a couple hundred, maybe like a million or millions of people up to hundreds of millions of users. Obviously, she wasn't the only reason that happened, but she was there when it happened. And then in jobs she had after that as well, she's been in kind of the same role. Her role at Microsoft in the AI head was to try to figure out how to get people to use their AI, because they've stuck their AI, Cortana, into everything and no one uses it. And her job there wasn't, she seems like she kind of talked the talk the way she's done with gaming a little bit. But her, she wasn't like an AI person. She was a user acquisition person. And we're starting to see, that come out in her new role here as well. She mentions consoles multiple times here, talking about how the industry is changing. Like this line here, I liked. It was some of the biggest recent hits are coming from small teams or even single creators, and places like Roblox are producing experiences that rival even major franchises in scale. What I like here is the end of this one where she says the model, or the team that put this together says, the model that got us here won't be the one that takes us forward, which I think is pretty interesting. And so it says here, Xbox will be where the world plays. This gets into their priorities, which I'm not going to read all of this necessarily. But what I will get straight into are the things that they've identified as kind of their goals to kind of make things better here for them and their people who use their stuff, right? Their ecosystem. So hardware, stabilize Gen 9 as a healthy and high quality base. This one, it's probably a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if before the holiday season, we see them, I assume through subsidies, try to lower the price of even the current hardware, the Series X and Series S, at least back down to launch prices. If they can get real crazy to even go below that, like it should be by now, but we'll have to wait and see if they can do that. I think that would be a big deal. I think there's like a concern of like, well, if people buy a console this year, then when the new one comes out next year, no one will buy it. And I don't necessarily think that's true. If you get it cheap enough, and if you sell the new hardware hard enough and give people a reason to get it, people will figure it out, one way or the other, especially the more high-end user base you're targeting with these, higher end machines. Speaking of Helix, deliver Project Helix to lead in performance and play in your console and PC games. This also suggests to me that they're likely going to try to ensure that at least the Series X continues to have life in the future. So if they do get a bunch more people onto that hardware, that when Helix comes out, it's not necessarily going to forget them. I wouldn't be surprised if the next gen of consoles, especially with Xbox, maybe a little bit with PlayStation, is extremely cross-gen, where the base experience might be like a Series X. But if you have a Helix, you're going to get a way better experience. So much of what they've talked about, and even in this list, is about trying to make sure that that the scalability of their games and stuff like that is there. So you can play on low end PC hardware, you can still play on Series S or Series X, but you'll also benefit from playing on Helix or a high end PC. Lead and comfortable personal high performance accessories. That's super exciting. I would do anything for them to bring back the keyboard that goes between the two sticks on the controller. You technically can get them, but they aren't like the legit ones that work like natively. You have to do weird stuff. But things like that, hopefully that's what it's signaling. And build a strong ecosystem that expands choice and reach, which I think they actually do okay at. With content, it says grow and extend enduring portfolio of franchises players love, evolve our third-party partnerships and strengthen our 5-year slate, expand into China, emerging markets, and mobile-first audiences, which that's probably the biggest deal in this list. Maintain and grow in live games and long-term stewardship. So you have the live service games, which have seasonal models and things like that. But even long-term stewardship is, in my opinion, suggesting things like DLCs and expansions and stuff like that to games that maybe aren't live service games, but can still be serviced in the long run, especially if it's profitable. And then elevate creator-centric platforms like Minecraft, The Elder Scrolls, and Sea of Thieves. Elder Scrolls is an interesting one there to me, because that seems to be certainly a reference to Elder Scrolls 6 and not to back to Skyrim or whatever. So pretty cool one there. And then experience, fix the fundamentals of players and partners, make Xbox the best place for developers and creators to build and grow, and overhaul discovery, customization, social, and personalization to connect to the community. The make it the best place for developers and creators to build and grow is huge, especially for developers. There's been quibbles in the past about how Xbox isn't always the easiest one to release games on and to get dev kits and things like that from. But over the last even 6 months, even before Asha came, they had been making moves to make that easier. They got rid of I believe they got rid of the NDA to use some of the development tools. And I think they just released a new thing for, I believe it was the SDK or whatever it's called, where it's the tools you use to make your game work on Xbox. I just saw they put out an update, I believe it was yesterday on the 23rd, that they updated that tool quite a bit, which can make games way smaller, and it seemed like there was some good stuff happening there. And then here at the bottom, they had services, fortify Game Pass with clear differentials and sustainable economics, return the business to durable growth with strong cost discipline, make cloud play feel native, fast, and reliable across TVs and low-cost devices, use M&A to deliberately accelerate growth where organic paths are too slow. One thing that I noticed in that a article came out is that the expectation for their profit margins have gone way down and or have essentially gone away, and to the point where it looks like they're actually going to be focused way more on like monthly active users instead, which is something that Xbox is extremely good at. Even if it's not the biggest current gen console platform, they do really well with still having active, the people who buy their consoles, you tend to use them. Their previous consoles are still very active. Their PC app is very active, and people interacting with them, and their ecosystem is pretty good. So that's definitely a more sustainable thing for them to do. And I think that should be a good sign. I also have to point out here right in the middle, it says, along the way, we will reevaluate our approach to exclusivity, windowing, and AI, and share more as we learn and decide. The exclusivity one there drove everyone crazy. I'm like 50-50 on that stuff. I'm a big proponent of, I think I've kind of settled into the idea of like Xbox Game Studio games, I think should just be exclusive to Xbox. Activision Blizzard King, Bethesda ZeniMax should be, there's obviously cases like Call of Duty where I think Call of Duty should just be third party. I don't need that to be exclusive. But basically everything else I think should at least be time gated, for a year or 2 years, for, eventually get those out there. Games like Starfield and things like that should, eventually reach, the other platforms. Essentially once they no longer hold value to sell hardware, I think that's fine to move them out. But until then, I don't think you should do that. So, with some very obvious exclusions. And then here we come to the end of the article. It says, we are Xbox. To achieve our master plan, we must, the way we work must transform. Our best work happens when the full stack moves together, quote unquote Microsoft Gaming describes our structure, but does not describe our ambition. So we are going back to where we started and changing our team's name. We are Xbox. We are, and then it goes into just a bunch of, talking, hyping things up there. And then it goes into here. It says, at our best, we earn every player, protect our art, stay rebellious, progress over perfection, signal over ceremony, core before more, outwork the problem, speed is learning, makers over managers, and clarity is kindness. And then they wrap it up here with, over the last 5 years, Xbox and the industry have been through an unimaginable amount of change, and the team has continued to deliver through it for our community. Thank you for staying focused on what matters. 62 days in, we're proud of how we've honored our commitments of great games, return of Xbox, and the future of play. We are here to do the most creative and courageous work of our lives, and that's what we'll do together. With gratitude, Matt and Asha. So, like I said, lots of words, lots of good words. I've seen a lot of people who genuinely feel like pumped back up and excited about where Xbox is going. And I don't think I have seen people talk that way since before the Xbox One. I'm going to be straight up, as someone who has been an Xbox fan since the original, and has been, covering games at least, back into the, late 2010s, but, was involved in games, my whole life. And I was, I worked at GameStop through the heart of the 360 generation. I've seen the other side, right? And obviously they need to follow through. Obviously it needs to, be, actions will speak louder than words, right? But I really do believe, like I said before, that the words still matter, and making people feel good about the brand and feel excited. I don't think, and I could be wrong, maybe we could go back and find other examples. I've never seen Xbox as a platform sell itself like this, or clearly explain its brand and its goals like this ever before. I don't think we've ever seen PlayStation talk like this, and be this, clear and ambitious or whatever. So look, they got to put up or shut up, right? But until then, I think there's a lot to be happy about here and a lot to be excited about. And I hope that, this stuff is real. I hope it gets fulfilled, and I hope we see some results from this, because even if you're a PlayStation gamer, you should want Xbox to be more competitive. If you're an Xbox gamer, you should want them to be more competitive too. Those kind of things drag down prices. They make things better. And improve quality. They, it's good for the industry when the industry is not so top heavy, or so owned by certain platforms, and certain niches and stuff like that. So, that's kind of what I have for this one. Get in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about everything. Subscribe to the channel if you want more Xbox coverage or just gaming news in general. Hit the like button so more people see the video. Consider becoming a YouTube member if you want to get videos like this one a bit early and support what I'm doing here, as well as some other perks. You can check out the links in the description of the video for my other content and other ways to support what I'm doing here. That's all I have for this one. So until next time.